We are recording. Michael Head, welcome to the podcast. Who are you? We're going to start off here. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, I mean, with our relationship, I'm kind of like a big brother.
Definitely.
But right now, I'm really just a med student going to medical school.
And I'm sorry,
which is kind of nice. It's a big change.
I was going to say, where are you in medical school?
I'm a second year at the University of California in Irvine.
Just no big deal. University of California, Irvine. It's fine. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm going to break this down in the intro, but I want you to break it down because you're going to do much better than I do. For everyone's mental brains, what have you done? Like, you have done so many different things. I'd love if you just listed out some highlights.
Yeah. So I guess my first real job was coaching gymnastics. I was 14, which is as early as I could start working legally. So I did that. I kind of did that on and off for 12 years, into my 20s. Kind of coached everything from preschoolers to high level competitive women's gymnastics, which was pretty fun. I got to coach at the Olympic Training Center, or I guess the girls' equivalent, the Ranch, which is kind of under fire these days for some bad things that have happened there. But it was a cool experience for me while I was doing it. Mm-hmm. So I did that. That was my first job. I was on a volunteer search and rescue team in high school and into college. Mm-hmm. My team specialized on aircraft search and rescue. So we were looking for aircraft that crashed in the mountains, which happens kind of frequently in Colorado. There's a lot of mountains and weird wind and snow.
Good God.
Yeah, I don't think it's the best thing to do for a teenager to recover dead bodies out of airplanes, but it happened a lot.
YouTube, you can see how giant my eyes are right now. He said that. I was literally, Michael said right before we hopped on this podcast, he's like, you're about to learn a lot about me, and we're not even 5 minutes in, and you're not wrong. So continue.
Yeah, I did my first body recovery when I was 15, which is not good. I don't think for a teenage brain to be dealing with, especially with high school and whatever else goes on at that.
Oh, those problems.
Yeah, I basically ignored high school. It's I'm doing more important things in my life, trying to save people or mostly just recover dead bodies because most people don't make it out of plane crashes. But that was a cool experience. I learned a lot. Kind of led me on the path to medicine a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's kind of after that. I joined a fire department at the end of high school. I was 18. It was as early as they would hire me. And I did that until med school. So for 11 years, which was pretty great. Got a lot of experience, did a lot of medicine through them. I ended up being the medical captain for the last year and a half to 2 years that I was there before going to med school, which was a cool experience. I kind of got to figure out the training and the equipment and everything that goes into teaching medics and firefighters how to deal with people, which was fun.
Yeah.
Started some companies. How old was I? 23, 24?
And I just want audience to hear that. There was an S on the end of that. That is companies, not companies. Continue though. What were the companies that you started?
So, first off, I'll say my dad is a super serial entrepreneur, in an insane 100%.
Way.
Yeah. And so I definitely picked up that gene where I'm just ooh, this thing's interesting. Let's go do something with that. Which is a blessing and a curse. I'm just a little too ADD overall with that. But it's been fun. So the first company that I started was a software company. It is still running. We made a software product for lawyers to basically make their firms more efficient. And it's doing well. So it's just doing its thing. I'm in med school. My business partner is running it and whatever. That was a fun project. I learned a lot of cool skills. And from there, I kind of jumped into consulting. I did business consulting. I guess I still do business consulting. But I started business consulting mostly business and marketing, but I kind of do everything at this point. Started another company. What did I do first? Actually, that's not true. I helped my buddy launch some products. He's an inventor. He's like an incredible inventor. You guys have probably seen his products in Target and things cool like that. But I helped him launch some products that he was working on. Did that for almost a year. And then started another software company with two of my close friends. Ran that for 3 years as the CEO before. And during this, I guess I was like also firefighting.
And teaching gymnastics and
doing
this. Like
I stopped teaching gymnastics to like switch into the business world.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't do both. Yeah. But I was like, I guess I skipped over some parts there. Like I was also working as a critical care tech at an emergency room, like part-time. And then I jumped back into that, kind of did that for a while. Then I stopped after college. And then I did that again when I was thinking about going to med school. I was like, do I actually want to do medicine? Like this business thing's pretty cool. So I jumped back into the hospital world. I was doing that like part-time. And I was also, an event medic for like the Ironman or like big triathlon races. And I ended up helping the CEO run that company a little bit for about a year before taking off to med school as well. So I've done a lot of things. I probably missed some stuff in there, but
Jesus.
Yeah, overall I've done some companies and like I did firefighting and I've done like emergency medicine for a while and coached gymnastics. I coached parkour for a while, like on the side.
Oh, I remember that. Oh my goodness. I want to pause and tell audience members, because you're probably smelling what I'm stepping in here. Like you are the reason I wanted, the reason I wanted to have you on this episode of the podcast is because I get messages consistently. And I was telling Michael this before we hopped on air. I get messaged consistently about like, I want to do this, and this, but how? I don't know how, like, what do I do? And I was like, who is someone who has done 1.5 million different things? Oh, that's right, Michael Head. And you guys, if you just heard him list everything out, he's not 50 years old. He doesn't sleep an hour a night. Like this is like a thing that you can do. And so I wanted to have him on the show to teach us not only what the mindset behind that is, but maybe how to get started on that. So I wanted to ask you this question, and that is, what have been your biggest learning lessons? What have been your biggest successes? What have been some moments where you're like, I should have done that differently, so on and so forth?
I mean, I think there's 1 million of those depending on what industry we're talking about. I will say that like I've never prioritized making money. So like I never did anything that I did because I was like, ooh, like money. Like I'm just not that kind of person. I'm way more interested in doing things that are interesting and like fun for me, which is mostly how I got involved with things.
So will you talk that out? Like what, I know you say like, what are interesting, what's fun for me. So like, are you more focused on like, oh, this very Maria Kondo style, but this brings me joy, I'm going to do more of that. I'm highlighting this for listeners to hear this because everyone's so panicked about money all the time. You can do what you love and do more of it and get income from it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely depends on like what your situation is. Like I don't have any kids, so like that helps. And I know people who like, you know, wanted to jump away from their jobs, but like I have 3 kids and I don't know how to deal with that. And like, that's a hard thing to deal with. Like monetarily, you do have to like provide for your family. So I'm in a different place than those people. But I have helped those people start companies because they didn't like their jobs. And I'm somebody who fundamentally believes that we don't have a lot of time on this world and you should just like enjoy what you're doing. Yeah. And if you hate what you're doing, just do something else. Like plenty of people will pay you money.
Yep.
You just got to make that jump.
Oh, that's so good. Actually, I know I can name, I won't, but I have at least 5 off the top of my head who this month alone have said like, I hate my job. I hate it. And I'm like, well, why don't you leave? Well, medical insurance. Well, this. And it's like, you can always come up with excuses. But I love that you say like, we don't have much time on this planet. That's so good. Oh my goodness. What have been some of your major successes through doing all the things?
Yeah, I mean, I think success is like pretty hard to define and everybody's kind of got their own definition. Cause like, you know, on one hand, like I think I contributed a lot to a lot of like teenage girls like upbringing, which was helpful, you know, and they're like successful in college now. And like, I played some part in that, like that's successful. I also have like a software company that's continuing to run. Like we're making money, it's profitable. Like that's definitely successful in some circumstances. Like I've also shut down companies. That's like maybe a failure, but like I learned so much from that experience that like I don't really think of it as failure. It's like that just contributed to like my knowledge base that I can utilize now. So I think that's like a hard question, but you know, I think contributing to people and like their well-being is like something that I am obviously like pretty interested in going to medical school, but also just like I love helping people start companies and like move that direction because like they're doing something with their life that they've been trying to do forever. Like, I don't know. I think people just get stuck in their heads a lot. So
have you had like a
success is like pretty wishy-washy maybe.
Have you had like a particular mindset with going into each new project, maybe the ones that have been, where we'll say quote unquote successful or quote unquote more enjoyable, more long-term, so on and so forth. But have you had a certain mindset going into those projects that you didn't with others?
No, I mean, I think I'm typically somebody who like jumps into things with 2 feet. So like if I'm going to do something, I'm just going to like do it. I'm not going to like I'm just going to give a couple hours here and there and like see where it goes. Like I'm just like, all right, let's like figure out what the like minimum we need to do to like make this successful with whatever metric that is for you. Like that's the important piece, right? Is that one user? Like maybe that's like pretty successful for a lot of starting people. So like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
I'm very like stepwise oriented and like, what is the minimum that we need to do to like get to X?
Yeah.
I think people like start companies like, oh, I have this like really complicated, cool idea, but we need like $8 million and like 57 employees before we can like get him like one customer. Like you need to like think a lot smaller.
So for those people who need to think a lot smaller, what's a easy like tactic for them? Like, let's say I have this massive big idea. I want to make a fuck ton of money from it. Where do I go?
Yeah, I mean, take that massive idea and take it to like the smallest denominator of like something that's useful, right? Because it's probably not this like massive complicated thing that's useful. It's probably like a piece of that that's really useful. And like, how do you do that one thing and do that well enough that somebody will pay you money for it?
Oh, so good. Oh my goodness.
You know, and then you can expand, you know, like Apple's this gigantic company, but like really it's just because somebody wanted to make a computer, which is like pretty complicated. Let's be real. Like a computer's complicated.
I don't know. I've done those
it's like
millions
one
of times.
product. You know, but a lot of these companies are like just, they came from like this one idea, like this one fix. Like Slack was like this little chat idea, and now it's this multi-billion-dollar company because they little chat thing that worked really well and people loved it, and then they could expand. And it's like people need to realize that these big complicated ideas came from like this one thing that somebody was like, man, I wish like X did Y instead of G, and like let's do that.
Yeah, it almost sounds like, what is your, like, if because I know there's a lot of people who want to be business starters, I'll even say on here, like, what is that one thing? What is the one problem that you were put on this planet to solve? Go fix that. Find someone with that problem and fix it for them. I know that sounds very like monumental. It doesn't need to be. It can be really small. Like, what is something you were put on this planet to figure out? It's probably something you've lived through. So maybe go figure out how to solve that problem and find someone who has that problem who you can guide and you can solve that for them.
Yeah. And I would say like, you know, be your own customer, like make something that you want because it doesn't exist. Not that like this other guy you heard about on YouTube wants. Like, I don't know. I don't know how people come up with ideas, but like for our software idea, like for our legal firm software, like my business partner's a lawyer. He was like, I really need this product. Like, let's make that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and for my other software idea, I really needed the product. So we just made something that worked for me. And like, if it works for me, it's going to work for other people. So like, that's what we went for, you know. Don't try to like think about problems that people might have, like find a problem you have and like solve that.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Oh my goodness. I obviously, from knowing you for literally 26 years, I know how growth mindset oriented you are. You're all about like personal development, all that kind of stuff. Have there been any major moments or major resources or even major experiences that have resulted in you up leveling as a, not only as a business owner, but as a human? It's a very loaded question. Can you tell?
I mean, it's very loaded, but also like, it's very broad. Like, I feel like you should be up leveling like all the time. I mean, thinking back to like teenage years, like, I don't know, I was a completely different person, right? Like the people I hung out with was different. Like I wore baggy clothes and I was like kind of a dick to people, I think probably, which was strange because I'm not like that at all. And I had like an
No.
anger problem and I was like fairly depressed and like whatever, you know, and I figured out at some point that like it matters who you hang out with. It matters what they're doing, right? Like if you're around people who are like sad and angry and down all the time, like you're probably going to be like that at some point, even if you're not now. Like find the people that are smarter than you and like more motivated than you and like hang out with them, you know? Like I think for me that's the biggest thing is like earlier this year, I don't know, COVID's like got me thinking a lot about life and like what I'm doing and should I be in med school and like whatever, all these things.
Sure.
But it's like one of the things is like who are like the 5 or 6 people that I actually want to like be integrated with in some major way, you know, like for X, Y, or Z. And so I reached out to like all these people that are friends, but we weren't like super close friends. I was like, hey, like, let's just talk more often because nobody can see each other anymore because there's a virus, you know, but it's like, so we're talking, you know, like every week or every other week and just like catching up and like talking about things. We're all motivated about like money and stocks and like personal development and growth and whatever. And I think that's like super helpful.
Definitely. I think on at least a million times on this podcast, I've mentioned the thing that has really jump-started my own personal development journey, and I know those of many others, is like you become the 5 people you hang out with most. And when I heard that the first time, I wrote it out. I like my list, and I was sad and almost like a gut punch of the people who were on that list. I was like, I don't even like half these people, let alone half these people are not even happy or living at anywhere near the level of life that I want to be living at. And within that week, I made some massive changes. And a lot of people immediately follow that up with, well, I don't know how to like break up with someone, or like, I don't like friendship or partner or whatever. And it's like, the way I always look at it is you don't have to make it dramatic. In fact, don't. Like you can make this just like you are transitioning, and your future self will thank you for it every time, no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with that. Like people make it this big deal. Like, how do I break up with friends? I'm like, you don't live with your friends. Like, just stop inviting them to things. Like, just invite the people you want to hang out with instead. Like, it's not a big deal. Breaking up with relationships are a bigger deal, I think, and probably need to happen for more people who are thinking about it. Like, if you're thinking about breaking up with somebody, you probably should.
God.
Like shooting it out there, you know.
So
people wait too long, and I'm definitely in that boat there. I wait too long to like break up with people, but it's really like detrimental for your life to hang out with the wrong people. And it can be like long term, you know, like whether it's bringing you down or like if you're only hanging out with people for an ego boost, like that's not great. That's not going to get you anywhere. It's going to make you feel good for 20 minutes.
And then shitty for 20 hours. Like,
yeah. And then you feel bad. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, why isn't my life progressing? It's like, well, look who you're hanging out with. Like, go find cooler people.
So what are things
And
that you do keep going. Sorry.
I would say like cooler people does not mean like higher level people, right? Like just because they're like running a multi-million-dollar company or like they're a CEO or like whatever, like doesn't mean they're like the people for you to hang out with. Like those are people that you might want to hang out with, but you should find the people within that group that actually like mesh with you and what you want to be achieving, you know?
Oh, that's good. I don't think people talk enough about that part. Like, oh, you also want to mesh with the people who are playing at that higher level that you want to be playing at.
For
like
sure.
You don't try to fit a round peg in a square hole. Square peg in a round hole.
And I think like a lot of people don't realize that a lot of CEOs of like very successful companies are only successful because of luck. Like for the most part, like something they did was like really lucky, whether they met the right person at the right time or like they entered a certain market at the right time. Like a lot of it's luck, and they have a lot of like successful bias, right? Like they're like, oh, what I did works. And like, maybe it worked for you at that time, but maybe it wouldn't work for you now or like 10 years ago or whatever, right? Like, so just because they're successful doesn't mean like they're actually doing the right things. It might be because they're really lucky.
Yeah.
So like you gotta at least think about that.
Definitely. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned like right at the top of that question that you believe you should be leveling every single day and growing. What are some things that you maybe put in place every day for yourself to make sure that is happening?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I like have like a morning routine that I try to stick to. It's not gonna make me like, I guess it makes me better in some ways every day. I like work out every morning and like I take a cold shower and I like meditate. And so like
Mm-hmm.
those things are like important, I think, for sustaining and probably like up leveling what you're doing. And then just like seeking out opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much what I do. I'm like, oh, there's an opportunity. Like I might as well try and take it,
Have
which is
you,
kind of bad because then I get overcommitted, but
I was
I
going to
learn a
ask,
lot in the process. And that's like what matters.
that's true. That's fair. Have you always been like that? Because I know a lot of people, like, they have imposter syndrome, or they have like, oh God, like, I don't know if I should do that, or so on and so forth. Have you always been that, like, I'll take this, I'll do this, I'll jump at this? Or has that been a muscle that you've grown?
Um, I think there was like a decision that I made sometime in like my early 20s that I was like, I'm just going to say yes to things that sound interesting, right? I'm not going to say yes to things that I'm not really interested in. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
waste my time. I don't want to waste other people's time. And I do think there is value in like the whole, if it's not a yes, it's a no. Or if it's not a
Mm-hmm.
fuck yes, it's a no. You know, like that's a
Yep.
pretty popular saying right now. But I do think there is value in exploring things that you're just not sure about that seem interesting. And so like at some point in my early 20s, I was like, oh, if it seems interesting, like I'll check it out. You know, I'm not gonna like commit to anything and I'm not gonna like jump in super hard, but I'll like feel it out and see if I want to commit or if I want to jump in. And so that was like a conscious decision. I definitely had the imposter syndrome thing, like for sure.
You said
No
had. Has
question.
it gone away?
Um, I don't know. I know like a lot of people in medical school have it, like that I hang out with. I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel it now. When I was running companies, I would have it in like certain contexts maybe. But like raising money, I was always like, you know, investors are like sometimes kind of rude and they're like, why do you think you're qualified for this? And you're like, I don't know. Like, what do you mean? Like, don't attack me.
Yeah.
But it's like really good to actually have that experience and like understand like why they like want an answer out of you, right? Like they're not looking for credentials, right? You don't have to have like a degree in whatever. Like you just have to be like really motivated to like get things done and like have interest in that topic.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend recently, shout out to Brittany if she's listening, and she was saying about how our generation is really one of the last that like is in that in between. We're in that in between between like our parents, I mean, not really our parents, but our colleagues and our peers' parents who did the 9 to 5. They worked, 60 hours a week until they were 60, and then they lived their life. Like, like they worked sweat, blood, tears at a job that didn't make them happy, but they had good health insurance, they had good this, and then they started living. While the generation younger than us is being told constantly, like, go be a TikTok star, you can do this, do whatever you put your mind to, look at all these like entrepreneur opportunities, so on and so forth. But we're in the middle. And we have our elders saying like, go get a job, go do this. We have the younger generation suddenly like growing massively, and we're just like, what do we do? And I feel like having that imposter syndrome, or having that like, I'm going to almost say like break or skirt syndrome, I'll say, where it's like, I'm going to do this. Ooh, I'm not enough. Ooh, I'm going to go to, ooh, I'm not enough. There's going to be people who are less qualified than you who are going to leap at the opportunity. So it might as well fucking be you every time. I'm really hype on this topic right now, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I guess
definitely.
I did have like imposter. So I published that article
Mm-hmm.
like a couple weeks ago. It's like, I'm not a writer. Like I've never thought of myself as like good at writing, or like I've never done it for fun or enjoyed it much.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did like, when I was publishing that, I was like, oh man, like, I don't know how this is going to get received. Like, I have no idea if I'm like writing well or like whatever. But people loved it, and that's like typically what happens when people do things that they're interested in. Like people love it. Like it's very rare that you get on stage or like do something weird and people are like, who the heck is that guy? Like, what are they doing? Like most of the time people are like, that's awesome. Like even if you did bad, they're like, that's sweet that you tried. Like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like people are, more willing to give you credit than you are, for sure.
Slap that on a t-shirt or a bumper sticker. That is so good. Like, well, I want to transition into your article that you wrote. For listeners who weren't there, which is everyone, Michael texted me this article, and I read through it and I was like, holy crap, this is really good. Like it talks about 3 things that I think are really important in life. Like, and so I texted him back and I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to send this over. And he's like, thanks. Like, share it with whoever. Like I just like I wrote it. And I was like, what? Like I didn't even read the written by part. And I was totally blown away. Will you give them all a little like TLDR on the article?
Sure. Yeah. So through this COVID thing, I spent some time in Hawaii. I was like very fortunate to have parents that live out there and be able to enjoy my life for the summer with some friends. And we had a lot of like conversations about life and like what it means and like what we should be doing. Cause I feel like everybody's kind of looking for that answer of like, what do I do? You know, like, do I make a lot of money? Like, am I not successful if I don't make any money? Like, there's a lot of opinions out there, right? And so like we were just talking for like days about this concept, and we kind of came up with these three ideas of like, everybody's gonna die. Like that's, for right now at least, that's gonna happen. Whether it happens like now or in 100 years, gonna die. And like what's actually valuable before you die, right? It's not making money, because like what's the point? You can't take any money with you. It is fun to have money and to like use it to have cool experiences, in my opinion, or like help people. But what we came up with was like this three-tiered, I guess, or three idea approach of like, you should stay alive for one, right? Like, try to stay alive for as long as humanly possible, because that gives you the most ability to do things in your life, is staying alive for as long as you can, right? The second part of that is learn as much as you can about whatever, and then disseminate that knowledge to like the rest of the world so that they can benefit from your learning, basically. Because then like you have legacy, and it's not like tied to you. It's not like an ego thing. It's like you just contributed to the betterment of society, hopefully in some way during your life. Because like that's like really what matters. You're gonna die. Like people are gonna forget about you, unless you're one of the super rare people who like do something ridiculously incredible that nobody does, right? People aren't probably gonna forget about Elon Musk, but
probably not. He did launch a car into space.
right. That's true.
Many things.
Somebody will see that flying around in like a million years.
Oh,
like,
that guy.
oh yeah, Elon. Yeah, cool.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so I want to dive into that first one, which is staying alive as long as possible. Obviously, you're a medical student. You're going into being a doctor and like all the credential stuff. What does that look like, we'll say now in 2020, staying alive as long as possible?
Well, I would say it's probably wearing a mask outside. Not getting COVID will help.
that would help, definitely.
In
but what are some
2020.
things that we could do, maybe in the safety of our own home, that would help that?
So I think, you know, the big ones are like eat well, eat healthy, you know, feed your body well. It turns out, you know, what you eat now matters for your future. If you eat really bad now, you might develop diabetes or like a whole bunch of other problems later, and you're going to have problems. I would say exercise, right? Not just for like looking good and like being fit, but also like bone health is really valuable to have. And your bone health kind of decreases when you hit 30, which isn't very old. It like starts going down. It's like, I know it's bad.
That makes me really sad.
Me too. It's like really terrible. So like working out while you're young to like build enough bone mass that like you don't become osteoporotic when you're 70 is like pretty valuable. But like everything that you do for your body is like very long term, right? Smoking now affects you in 30 years. Like all these things build up over time. And so you really have to like think about what you're doing now is like very valuable for your life now and in the future.
Definitely. Are you, do you have anything on like do you believe in doing like a full cutout, or are you kind of like an 80-20 person? If you know what I mean.
I mean, I enjoy cookies. I like eat junk food occasionally. Like
I'm not advocating.
Yeah, it's like, but I also like work out 6 days a week. Like I'm not really concerned about putting on weight or like whatever. I would say I eat healthy 95% of the time. I don't have any rules. I had pizza like yesterday, like, but I know it's terrible.
Pause. I do need to pause because Michael had just saying that he ate pizza is kind of a big deal in our family. So I am very shocked to hear that.
Yeah. So I guess like I'm gluten free. So like I think the best thing that does is it makes me read labels. Like beyond anything else. So I'll like often pick up a label that I can eat and I'm like, this has a lot of crap in it. Like I don't really want to eat this. You know, like it's like just looking at labels is super helpful to not eat shitty food.
The first time I did Whole30, which was 3 years ago, which for people who don't know, it's like No processed sugar, no gluten, no dairy, no fun at all. And so I love it though. It's one of my things I enjoy. But I went to the grocery store for the first time and I'd been eating like McDonald's crap. I mean, I was the heaviest I've ever been. I was the most unhealthy and unhappy with my body and my energy that I've ever been. And I went to the grocery store. I spent literally an hour and a half in the grocery store just by myself with some music in and reading every single label. People probably thought I was insane, but I didn't care because I was like, I'm finally taking this shit seriously. It became a must, not a should for me finally. And so I read everything and I did it for the first time. It was the hardest month of my freaking life, food wise or nutrition wise, but I've never gone back to that way of eating ever again because it was such a sharp pattern interrupt. And if people are looking for that, I recommend maybe not doing Whole30 because it might not work for your body, but like doing something where it's like requiring you to read what you put into your body. So important.
Yeah, hugely important. And I think just like people just need to eat more vegetables. Like a whole slew of medical problems would just go away if people ate more vegetables.
Really?
We just don't. Oh yeah, tons. Like, but how many people eat vegetables all the time? Like in this country, just not that many.
That's
true. Like I eat vegetables a lot, but I pay attention to that. So I think it's something that people need to pay attention to. Like I was talking to somebody about this, or I was thinking to my mom maybe. She was like what do you tell your patients? Because we like see patients as medical students. It's like almost everything that people come to us with that's like chronic would just be fixed if they ate better and worked out. That's it. They wouldn't be spending money on like pills or doctors or like feeling crappy or overweight or like whatever. Like just eat healthy and work out. That's it. We would drop the amount of people going to like hospitals and doctors by like 70% overnight. That's not an actual number. Nobody quote me.
I'm quoting you on that.
Yeah. But like people would just feel better and our country would just operate better because people would not be sick.
Wow. Oh my
But we don't incentivize that, man. All the cheap food is fast food and it's bad for you.
So bad for you. Oh my goodness. I could go on that. I could go on a whole separate podcast about food, but I do want to go on to the second one, which is learning. What all, like, I know you've kind of mentioned this before, but like, what has been your experience with like absorbing anything you possibly can?
Yeah, I mean, I think I try to learn stuff every day. Currently I'm certainly doing things that are just like objectively learning as fast as possible. The volume of information that they throw at us in medical school is truly nuts, like truly bonkers, insane. Didn't think it was possible to learn this much information per unit time. But like when you're starting a company, you learn a ton super fast. And like everything I've done in my life, I've pushed to like learn new things. I tend to get bored very quickly once I like flatten out my learning curve. And so I don't do that. But some people do. I think they probably get bored too, which is probably why they hate their jobs. But keep pushing is what I would say, right? Like always look for something to learn, whether that's like reading a book or like watching YouTube videos. Like my friend Marshall, awesome dude, by the way, ran a company, sold it at the beginning of the pandemic. It was very good timing for him. But he spent 6 months in Hawaii, like just watching YouTube videos about like real things, not like entertainment.
I was gonna say, like what cat videos did he watch? Jesus.
Yeah, he was, right. Serious cat videos. He just like knows all of them by heart now. No, but like he learned about like machine learning. Like he took a super deep dive into machine learning and investing in like all of these companies like independently, and just spent months in this beautiful location being like, no, like I want to learn as much about these subjects as I can. And like, this is super fun for me, which is like awesome.
We put so much pressure, and I've talked to several people about this where like, it's like, oh, well, just get curious. Just start getting curious about what you want to do. And he's getting fired up.
How do you get curious?
Like, how do I do that? I don't have thousands of dollars to invest. And I'm like, it is literally called YouTube. Go diddle around on YouTube. Podcasts, they're great. You're listening to one. They're free. Like you can learn so stinking much. I did not invest a single penny into my business until like months longer than I probably should have. But that's because I was absorbing any free thing I possibly could in order to get that baseline level. Once I felt a little plateau or like I was learning new things over and over and over again, then I went to the next level. That might require money, but in order to get curious on a topic, You do not have to pay a cent. A cent. Oh.
Totally agree. There are like unlimited free resources out there for like almost every subject these days.
Mm-hmm.
You could honestly learn everything in medical school for like $2,000 or something. Like you could. It would be terrible. You wouldn't like yourself for it, but you could do it. Like you could just be it. Well, you couldn't be a doctor because you need a license, but you could learn all the things.
Yeah.
Cool. But I think people struggle with like figuring out what they want to be curious about.
What would you say to those people?
You're not looking hard enough, or you're looking too hard. You know, I think everybody's got curiosities, right? Like chances are good you don't just like plop in front of the TV and like mindlessly watch The Office for like 12 hours before you go to sleep every day. Like, hopefully not. Maybe you do. I don't know. I like The Office.
Depends on the day.
Depends on the day, right?
No,
but like,
yeah.
If you're interested in the outdoors, like maybe you should pick up a bird watching book and like learn about birds, or like, you know, it doesn't have to be something that's like super useful for the world right now. Just find something that's interesting. And I would say like everybody's got this big penchant for like tech right now. And they're like, oh, I should like learn how to code. It's like, it's not for everybody. I really tried to learn how to code because I was like, this is like a great field to be in, whatever. It's really boring for me. Like
literally code. Someone was like, I need to learn how to code in order to put this app up. And I'm just like, outsource it. You have so much, like outsource. It's, have you read The 4-Hour Workweek?
Of course.
Oh God. It's how you could
Tim Ferriss is like, I like Tim. Yeah. I like Tim Ferriss.
I adore him. He is so smart. But once I read that book on outsourcing, that's when literally, and this is not too long ago, I started outsourcing for my business. My shoulders have never been lower in my business ever. Like, and that's when I started throwing stuff out there because I was like, you know what? I am not an expert of everything. It is very hard for Capricorns to admit that, but I'm not. And to be able to be like, hey, you're really great at that. I'm happy to pay you for it. And I have been blown away by how easy and how much I love it. Like, it feels so good. Yeah. And it does not have to cost crazy high amounts of money. Fiverr, Upwork, those are two great things. My logo, I outsourced it because I don't know how to make a logo. It cost me $5. Yeah, $5 to make my logo. It's insane.
Yeah. But people are just like, but I have so much to do. It's like, no, just take like one step. Also, I feel like a lot of people are just like busy, but they're not busy doing anything productive, right?
Ooh, like, talk that out. I want to hear this.
You know, like, I feel like it's so common for people to start companies and they're just like, oh man, I'm so busy. Like I can't ever hang out, or like I can't do whatever. It's like, yeah, but what are you busy doing? Right? Like if you're not doing something productive, you're just busy because you want to be busy, right? Like it's all about priorities. This is like the biggest thing I learned starting companies. Cause like I also had a girlfriend and like want to date people and like whatever. It's like, especially if you're starting a company, you can spend 24 hours a day doing that. No question. Like you can just do that forever if you want to.
Who wants
that? Probably won't be super useful.
No.
And you'll probably burn out and like hate yourself shortly, but you can do it. And so it's like really valuable to like prioritize your time into chunks that are like actually valuable uses of time, right? The whole like 8-hour workday thing is like pretty bullshit to me, I think, because maybe I'm just more ADD than other people, but like I don't have that kind of attention span. And if I'm not going to be productive, I might as well do something that's fun. Or like productive in other ways. And so like I do this studying all the time where like I study until I burn out and then I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go for like a walk or go climbing or like go for a bike ride or like, I don't know, there's no pressure to be like, but I've only studied like 8 hours today instead of 16. Like it's nonsense. I have a lot of friends who do that in med school. But like when I was starting a company, same thing. They're like, what do you mean you're not like working 16 hours a day and sleeping 4 hours a night and like whatever? I'm like, why are you doing that?
I read a quote recently. It was from Brene Brown, of course, but it was stop wearing stress as a status symbol.
Totally.
And I heard that and I was like, oh, like at me, why don't you? And it's like, but it like, since reading that quote, my entire life has shifted. It happened to be around the same time that I also got a VA. Like literally we wear stress, and especially I'm going to say in the online business space, because I've seen it so much here. You wear stress as a status symbol. Oh, I'm so busy. Oh my God, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. You might not actually be that busy, but the language that you're using is causing your neurochemistry to believe that you're busy. Your heart rate's going to go higher. You're going to get stressed out. You're going to get burned out quite quicker. And you could have loved what you did, but you started using that really heightened and dramatic language. We just did a podcast episode last week on what that looks like. If you haven't listened to it, go. But you start listening or start saying those types of things, and you're self-fulfilling that prophecy. It's so
Totally
detrimental to start using busy as a status symbol. What if it was easy? What if it was easy? What if you enjoyed it? Literally almost all my clients right now, we're working on the word ease. Let ease be so much a part of it. And I challenge that for everyone listening. Like, what can you add ease into? Literally, you're in med school and you look like, ease. Like, I'm sure it's hard, but like being able to go on a walk or go on a climb, like you were just saying, like, it does not have to be so push, drive.
Yeah.
I get very lit on this.
No. I mean, like I think that's like really poignant for like our demographic. It's like, especially in tech, especially in online business, especially in like personal business. It's like, oh, but I'm only sleeping 3 hours. Like, you know, like you're sleeping 4, like I'm getting a whole other hour of work. And it's like, yeah, but is that productive work? Like, probably not. You're probably tired. Like, even if you are doing anything that's work related, which you're probably not, you're probably on Facebook. Like, it's probably not very productive because you should have been asleep 3 hours ago. Like, you know, and I think I've really realized that. And I definitely use that in like medical school. My friends are like, why do you score so high? And I'm like, I think it's because I sleep. Like,
how much do you sleep at night? That's not like a
like 8 hours.
Measuring contest. Thank you. Oh my God.
Yeah. I do not give up my sleep for things unless I like have to for like patients or whatever. But like, and like when I was a firefighter, like we, you know, get called out in the middle of the night for random things. But yeah, 8 hours of sleep. Like, I'm not going to lose my sleep and my sanity and like my health because I'm like measuring my dick against somebody else trying to stay up later. Like, literally, I study until my brain's like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. And I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna watch some TV, or like I'm gonna go to sleep, or like I'm gonna read a book, or like anything else. I do not force myself to like do anything once my brain shuts off because it's just not gonna be helpful.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And I think so many people push. And they're like, yeah, but I worked like 16 hours yesterday. And you're like, what did you actually get done though? Right? You could work 1 hour. If that's more productive than your 16, and like do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh man, I'm releasing a podcast episode coming up, so this is a little teaser for everyone, but it's all about the personal development guilt. There's so much guilt in this like, oh, I need to be constantly working on myself. I need to constantly be better. I need to constantly do this. And it's like, whoa, the whole point of personal development, the whole point of working on your mindset, on your goals, on your dreams, so on and so forth, is so you don't have to deal with that. Like one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given was, who do you want to be 5 years from now? What are her mannerisms? What are her habits? What are her mindset tricks? What are her daily affirmations, so on and so forth? Do all those now, and you will be that person in 5 years. And literally, we put so much, and when I say do all those now, I did not do all of those at the drop of a hat, implement in my life, and then hunky-dory, I happy guru pantsed out of here. Like, that's not how it works. But you have to like implement one at a time, master it, make it a habit, make it unconscious. Great. Do the next one. Do the next one. Do the next one. Do the next one.
Yeah. And I think like on that note, like a lot of people have these like grand ideas of like, I'm going to work out every day, and I'm going to take a cold shower, and I'm going to eat well and whatever. And as soon as you get lazy, you stop, right?
Yep.
And it's the days that you feel the laziest where you actually like have to make yourself do it. Because every time you like cheat a little bit, you tell yourself like, oh, it's okay. Like, I can just take the day off, you know? And that turns into like every day where you're like, oh man, I haven't worked out in like 6 months because I got lazy. It's like, for me, like it's cold showers, because I do cold showers most days.
What's the science behind that? I'm not sure. Like why? I've heard this.
Yeah, it's pretty good for your immune system. Is like the most basic I'll go. It's pretty good for your immune system. Yeah.
Cool.
We'll go with that.
Sweet.
So I do those, and there are some days where I'm just like, oh man, it's so cold, and like, but it's so nice in the warm water, and I'm tired, and like I'm cranky or whatever. And those are the days I'm like, nope, turn on the cold shower. Like, has to happen, and I almost always feel better afterwards. Whereas if I cheat that day, like later in the day, I like feel worse and I drag more. And I'm like
Yeah.
a little more lazy, and like, you got to push through those days and those times and do what you said you were going to do.
People
No
who've
matter
been
what.
wondering, literally anyone who's been listening or have been wondering, what's the secret to motivation? What's the secret to motivation? That's it
This is
right
the
there.
secret.
This is the secret.
Yeah.
Do it fucking anyway. Like, you're not going to
Yeah.
want to do it. Great. Do it anyway. Like, that
6
is
a.m.
the
rolls
secret.
around, you're like,
Yep.
totally. That's the
Mhm.
secret. You got to do the workout.
Oh my God.
It's
Literally,
gonna suck.
I haven't admitted this on the podcast, but I'm going to. I have been so off my getting up early regimen. Like, normally I'm like 6 a.m., like a little shining dove in the morning. But since my sister's wedding, which is when Michael and I saw each other last, like, I have been sleeping in really sloggy, like just totally out of it. And it's become a new excuse, quote unquote, which is actually a habit. But I was like, okay, no more, absolutely not. My Brett, my boyfriend, got a sun lamp, and it's now been going off at like 5:36, and I want to throw that sun lamp across the room, but it wakes me up in the morning, that light. And like, yeah, sure, I might hate it and I might like gremlin scream at it, but like, am I still going to get up? You're darn right, because it's a visual reminder. Oh, hey, this is who I said I'm going to be 5 years from now. She gets up at 6 a.m. every night, or every morning.
Yeah, and I think on that point, like, there's also a lot of stress around like how early we wake up and like how quickly we get to doing whatever, and that should be different for everybody, right? Like,
Yeah.
Jocko Willink is like 4:30 in the morning. I'm up like working out. Like, that's not me.
No.
If I wake up at 4:30, I'm gonna crash at 3:00 p.m. and I'm useless. Like, I know this. I've tried it. It doesn't work, right?
Mm-mm.
Like, I wake up at 7 and I do a workout for an hour. Like, that's what I do every day. That might not work for your schedule, depending on what you're doing, but like, keep it consistent and don't be like, oh no, like my best friend's getting up at 5. Like, maybe I should be getting up at 5. Like, no, just do whatever works for you.
Mm-hmm.
But just like do it.
Literally, anyone listening, you can have the same hardcore set in place morning routine and wake up at 9. You can have same style thing. You think that there's a whole like weird stigma around like the later you wake up, that means you're lazy, which means you lay in bed, which means you scroll through Instagram every morning, which means you like, and it just like literally tumble domino effect throughout your entire day. You can get up at 10 and still have the workout, cold shower, meditate, whatever that looks like, but like you can still have that. It's just at a different hour.
For sure. Like, my ex used to do this all the time. She was up at like 11 o'clock and I was like way gone, like working hard.
Yeah.
But she would be super productive at like 1 a.m. to like 3 a.m. She was just like that was like her super productive hours.
That's
like,
amazing.
Completely useless at that time.
Yep.
So like, everybody's body is different. Like, figure out what works for you and do that, and stop listening to other people. I think that's like the biggest thing, is it's too much like input from other people that you think is valuable. That's not valuable.
Have you read is it The Power of One? I think it's The Power of One.
No, I don't think so.
Like, there's a, for anyone listening, there's a book, which is actually more of a personality framework, but it's about which times of day, and it's very broad. So obviously like go with what works best for you if you know that, but like to give you some guidelines, there's a personality framework. I think it's 4 or 5 things, but it tells you, oh, like because of this habit or this thing you have, or this insomnia or so on and so forth, you will probably be better doing this schedule every day loosely. And it's not like super granular, it's very open, but you'll probably work out better in the afternoon versus in the morning. Whereas I'm someone who, like, the first thing I do in the morning, I got to work out because it's the most powerful way to wake up my brain. For some people, you got to do other things and like have your day a little bit, but a nightly run is the perfect way to make you go to sleep at night. Like, just so The Power of When, I can't remember who it's by, but I'll put the link in the show notes. It's a great quiz to take. I highly recommend it. But just to get some kind of framework.
Yeah, but I would say, like, come up with things you actually want to do and then make yourself do them. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with a day off, as long as it's only 1 day off or 2 days off. Like, whatever you decide for yourself, like, take that time off, enjoy it, and then like get back to work.
Yep. We sometimes make a decision of like, okay, I'm going to take a day off, but there's that little voice in our head that says, good, take the day off. Like, you're going to love this. And then you wake up the next morning and you're like, oh, this sucks. This is so hard. Remember yesterday when it was so easy, and that little demon voice comes back and it says, sleep longer, sleep longer. Sounds just like that. But and then you start to fall back on your habits because of the quote unquote excuse voice.
Totally.
I want to crush that voice. My goodness.
Yeah, you got to make yourself do what you're telling yourself to do all the
Mhm.
time.
Yep. So
The more you
we,
cheat on yourself, the more you lose it.
ooh, that's good.
Don't cheat on yourself.
Don't cheat. Guys, if you take nothing away from this episode, that is what I want you to take
Don't
away.
cheat on yourself.
Don't cheat on yourself. Oh my goodness. So we took a major detour, but I want to look
We
at
did.
the third. That's okay. I want to look at the third part of the article. What inspired that? Because that was kind of the more like, oh, that's not really something you hear every day. So what inspired that part?
Yeah, I mean, I think contributing to like the world inspired
Mm-hmm.
that part, right? Like if you're gonna die and you learned all this stuff, but you die and you don't pass any of it on, like what was the point? Like, yeah, you might have had a good life, but that's pretty much the same as like having a bunch of money and buying cool cars. Like you got to share what you learn,
Yeah.
right? Ideally, you learn something that can like help progress humanity, and somebody can like build off of what you learned to build more stuff. But if not, like at least you contributed to somebody's learning,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. And I want to say to audience members, like, that can look like something really basic. I once heard a coach say, like, you can coach people, and this is for anyone who's looking to be a service as a business, but like, you can coach people who are 2 steps behind you because you know those 2 steps and you know how to get them to 2 steps ahead. And I just think that like we so often are like, but it's not going to change their life. It's not going to make them this like Mother Teresa style human. It's like, if you move someone forward 2 steps ahead than where they were at, that is changing
It'd be
someone's
huge.
life. It can be huge, massive. Some of the biggest changes I've seen with my personal clients is not from like these big, bold, look at me mindset tricks. It's from the teeny, tiny little things that just stack up every time.
For sure.
Yep.
That's pretty much what it is. I think like we're always looking for that one magic pill kind of thing. That just like doesn't really exist. Like
Nope.
you just got to put in the work.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. I could write a dissertation. I could write a dissertation on the magic pill syndrome. It is one of my like nail on a chalkboard thing because it just, everyone's looking for it. And everyone wants that like one thing that's going to make them like skyrocket and make everything easy and totally fine. And in actuality, it takes months and months and months and months and months of work. It doesn't have to be hard work. It can be enjoyable work, but it takes work. It takes doing something differently than you've been doing.
Yeah. Very few people start something and it like goes big immediately.
Oh my God.
Basically nobody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like one of my buddies was the CEO of Groove Shark, which was like at the time, like the biggest online music streaming service ever. Mostly because it was the only one. It was like before Pandora and before like all these other things,
Mm-hmm.
but they like struggled for years.
Yeah.
Until the iPhone came out, and then everybody was like, oh, I can access this from my phone. Done. But like it took them working on it for years for like that one change to happen and then to like access that new technology.
But we see highlighted in the media like, oh my gosh, they went from here to here. And it's like,
yeah, they grew like
big
8 million% in
Yep.
3 months. It's like, yeah, but you missed the like 12 years before that where they did nothing.
Oh my gosh, one of my favorite motivational speakers, I saw her, oh God, last year, 2 years ago, I can't remember, but she came out on stage and she says, I just want to do a quick little market research, which I immediately loved. But she was like, who has heard of me in the last 6 months? And pretty much everyone raised their hand. And she's like, okay, what about who's heard of me for over a year, 2 years, 3 years? And like, it went down to maybe like 1 person by the time she got to 15 years. She like skipped a few years. It didn't like year by year, but like, she literally was like, that person, literally, I have been doing this for 15 years. And yet they come on stage and ask me to give you guys a secret tip on how to get like wealthy or famous or successful overnight. She's like, I'm not going to do that because it took me 15 years and it's going to take you some time too. Like, literally every book that I read on like passive income or like Grow Rich or like Think and Grow Rich, stuff on that, it's all about like, if you find a get rich quick thing, it's a scheme. It doesn't exist. It's not real. Like it takes laying the groundwork, but we're so used to getting stuff right away because we're I want it now society. Again, another dissertation.
And you see like, I think this happens too in companies where people get jobs and they're like 8 or 9 months in, they're like, man, I'm just like not making that much of a difference. And I'm like, you've been there for 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what did you expect was going to happen? There's not very much time. You're barely onboarded in a way that you can be like functionally useful.
Yep.
People don't understand that it does take time.
Have you always had this style of thinking, or was there like something that kind of snapped you out of the like, I want it now society way of thinking?
I do want it now. No, I don't know. In some instances I do, but no, I don't know. One of my friends says it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. Like, that's his thing. It takes 10 years to be an overnight success.
That's good.
So it's like, do something that you're willing to work at hard for 10 years that you like doing, right? You can't start, especially businesses, right? You can't start a business because you want to get rich, because it's probably not going to happen. Right? Like, most companies fail. Most things you do are going to fail.
Which is great.
But which is great.
Which is so great. Right? Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. My failures, I don't really consider them failures because like I learned a ton and it was fun, right?
Yeah.
But I was doing things that were fun. I'm not going to do things that I like just grind at. Like, I just don't want to do that. I want to enjoy my life.
You're now the third or fourth, I can't remember, podcast guest to come on here and say that failure is not really failure. It's learning. It is learning. Yeah. It's feedback. It's redirection, whatever you want to call it. But like failure, and correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but it almost sounds like a gift. Like, oh my gosh, thank goodness I failed. Now I know what to do. Like, or now I know what to do next, I'll say. Like, yeah, go for it.
So when I went to med school, we like shut down one of my companies because I was going to go to med school and everybody was like, whatever. There was a lot of reasons, but like somebody was like, oh, so it failed. And I was like, yeah, I guess like it kind of did, but like, not really. Mm-hmm. Like, we learned so much starting that company and like running it and like doing everything that we did and the people that we met and whatever, right? Like, for me, it's much more about the learning experience and the people and like the enjoyment than it is like the success, right? Like, you're only going to be successful if you sell your company for bajillions of dollars, which like doesn't happen, or you IPO, which like doesn't happen. Like, enjoy the process, do cool things for customers and like meet cool people and learn a lot.
Yeah.
And that, like, I think that's true for like relationships, like I think dating people is interesting because you learn things about yourself that you can't otherwise figure out. Right.
One more
it's
time
very hard to figure out things.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Like, seriously. People are like, why are you dating? It's like, why are you not dating? Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, like heartbreak's a real potential issue, right? And like that hurts and that sucks. But like, you learn so much, in my opinion, from other people and like interacting with those people on like a romantic and intimate level that you could never figure out about yourself otherwise.
Yes. Like, underline, italicize, highlight everything you just said. Like, people, and I get it now because COVID world, but like people are afraid to date, and I'm taking the COVID out of it. They're so afraid to date because it's like, what if it doesn't work out? And it's like, great. I bet you learned something. Literally, I think I've shared this on the podcast, but I'm not sure. Almost 3 years ago, almost to the date, I wrote down a list of every single thing I wanted in a partner, like to the T, how tall he was, like, which I could like, I took a little card out of Bill and Peggy Baker's recipe book there, but which are my parents for anyone listening, but like, how tall is he when I hug him, where does my head fit? Like, what are his goals? What are his ambitions? What his family like? Like, I got granular, every single thing I could possibly think of. And then lo and behold, that person arrived in my life and like a shining silver platter, just like handed over. But I want to highlight this for people. That was not my first list. I've made that list probably 3, 4, 5 times, maybe more. And each time it looks different because every time I dated someone, I learned, ooh, God, X that off the list. Or like, okay, there's a whole other chunk of things that I did not explore. And every time that I made those lists, I brought a person who was almost every single thing on that list, like high five manifesting, but like every single thing on that list, they were brought over to me. And then I just refined it more and more and more. I don't know where I was going on that tangent, but you're going to learn more about yourself and more of who you want in a partner and who you need in a partner based off of who the people you date. There.
For sure. Totally agree.
Yep.
And like, as you grow, as you level up, like those people are going to change.
Yes. 100%.
Now, hopefully, if you're like with somebody, they change with you.
Or like
you're with
they're
somebody who's
even,
trying to level up as well, you know?
oh my God. Like
But
one of the most valuable things for my relationship has been, what are our values? Like talking about what do they look like? And we went into that conversation being like, okay, our values are going to look different, and that's fine. Like that's means we're different living, breathing specimen. And I'm okay with that. But do they, I'm going to say, do they match each other? Not like, do they match each other in words, but do they match each other in energy? Like,
are they compatible?
Thank you. Are they compatible? Like if my number one value was growth and his number one value was certainty, we got some discourse there. But like if my number one value is growth and his number one value is like learning or achievement or success or whatever that looks like, that's not what his is, but I'm just making it up, then those are compatible, so on and so forth. But
Totally.
one of the best things if you're in a relationship and you're wanting to learn how to grow together, sit down, write out your values, figure out which ones are compatible, if any. And if not, talk about how some can be, because that's
Totally.
how to do it.
And I will say, like, Tim Ferriss talks about this a lot too, but like, push yourself out of your comfort zone as much as you can.
Yes.
Like that's where you're going to learn things and get more comfortable and be able to push further, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of people, that's relationships.
Ooh, that's true.
Like that's scary. Like, so me and my friends back in Colorado, some of them, we made a pact to always ask out people that we were interested in. Like whatever that meant. Like if they were attractive, we were going to ask them out. And so like I spent like 6 months asking out like 100 women. I don't know, like way too many girls. And I went on ridiculous amounts of dates. And most of them I didn't really like. But like I met some really cool people who like I didn't end up dating, but like we're friends now. And I did meet somebody that I dated for like a long time through that process. And it got me over the like nonsensical fear of like asking girls on dates.
That is so
great idea.
Interesting.
I was like, what's the worst thing they say? It's no. And then I'm in the same place that I was like 30 seconds ago. Like, okay.
Yep. Literally, I heard a similar but different tactic. I heard someone who was really afraid of fear of rejection. Like that was like so much a pain point for them where they would do anything to avoid it. Yeah. And so they decided that they were going to ask for 10% off at every single thing that they purchased.
Totally.
And like
it works.
when I first heard that, I was like, what? Like that sounds so scary. And it's like, wait, why? Like worst comes to worst, they say no. Worst comes to worst, they kind of look you up and down and like, are you a freak? But like, it doesn't matter. Like you are like built. I like to think of it this way. We'll look at it in that same example. That fear of rejection has such a strong muscle built where it's like, if you could go to the gym, pick up 100-pound weight and lift it with your pinky finger, that's how strong that fear of rejection muscle is in your brain versus that, oh, like I'm trying to get over fear of rejection or like trying to move forward with that muscle is really weak where you like pick out a 1-pound weight and you can barely lift it. But the more and more reps you do, the more and more closer you get to that 100-pound with your pinky. There.
Totally.
Visual.
And like, I think that goes for a lot of aspects of life. Like I have friends who take forever to write emails to like these like big people. And almost always they reply with like one word. They're like, cool. Or like, yeah, sounds good. It's like, you know, like those people don't care. Think about you receiving an email. How much do you care about that email? You're not like, oh my gosh, I got this weird email from this one person. Like,
I read
what were they thinking?
Word
not
twice.
spelling that one word. Like, yeah, nobody cares. They're like, oh, I skimmed it. This sounds reasonable. Great, cool.
Ugh. Oh my gosh. Literally, I had people,
it's a perfection problem, right?
Yep. I was just about to say I had Delaney Fisher from the Self-Helpless podcast. She came on to talk about perfectionism. And it was like, she said it very similar to how you're saying it. Just try a bunch of shit. Like, try what you're interested in. Like, go after that. You like it? Great. Keep going forward. Like, if you don't, oh, great. There's this other thing you really liked. Like,
for sure.
We put so much pressure on the like, no, it has to be perfect every single time. And it's like, what if it sucks? Are you going to burst into flame? No, that's not how the world works. The sky's not going to open you up and like swallow you whole or like anything like that. Sure. Like you're going to still be okay.
Especially when you're like asking for things from people. People are so scared to do that. And I'm like, okay, so the worst thing that happens is they say no, in which case you are where you are now. And the best thing that happens is that you say yes and you get what you want. Like, that's
Yep.
pretty great. And
Yep.
for the most part, I found that people typically say yes.
Yep. There's a great podcast
Just
called,
do it.
there's a, what's it called? Don't Keep Your Day Job. That's it. And she talks about how the very first time she was like trying to break into the biz, I'm going to put that in quotation, but she literally reached out to someone who was of very high stature and just said, hi, I love your work with this. I love this. I love this. Can I do this for you? And it was all about them. It was all about them. How can I make your life better? What can I do to make your life easier? You bet your ass they replied back being like, you're on, like, let's do it. Like, because people are going to see that and be like, they're not about them. Like, the worst thing I think that you can do in an email is be like, here are all my things. Here's why I am amazing. Here's why I am amazing. I want to do this for you. I.
For sure.
Everyone cares about themselves. Like, it's a fact of life. I wish I could say it differently, but everyone is secretly looking at themselves, and some not so secretly, but how can someone make their life better? That's going to grab your attention.
For sure.
Yep.
And like, do things that other people don't, and don't take the first no for like the actual answer is what I'll say about that. So like, I have a friend who is a physical therapist, and she really wanted to go to this one physical therapy school that she got rejected from.
Mm-hmm.
And so she set up a meeting with the president of the school and was like, I want to come here. And these are like all the reasons and whatever. And he let her in.
Oh my God.
Right. But like, and I know like one of the doctors that I used to work with in Boulder,
mm-hmm.
he did the same thing for med school with Cornell.
Jesus Christ.
He wrote a letter to the dean or whoever it was, basically being like, I want to meet with you and talk about XYZ, whatever. The dean said yes. He flew to New York and was like, this is why I want to come to your med school. And this is why like I think I'd fit in well. And the dean was like, cool, you're in. Which like for applying to med school is ridiculous. It's such a long, hard process. Like, but you can just reach out to these people. They're just people. And they want motivated people with them. And if you're a motivated person that's willing to go for those steps, like, people say yes.
Oh my God.
And if they say no, then what's the harm? Like, you're at the same spot that you were.
Mm-hmm. And I'll like,
only people.
I know a lot of actors, and I think a lot of performers still listen to this podcast. Like, that advice goes for you guys too. A lot of people think like the industry is so small, like it's so tiny. Everyone talks. They're all going to say like, oh my God, that girl, she was so persistent. If I had the word persistent attached to like, oh, Nicole Baker, she's persistent, I would be like, fuck yeah. Like, mission of life done. Like, you, like, for someone, yeah, that might turn them off. Also, no one talks that much, but like, stop making it all about you is what I'm trying to say. Like, it is like, stop making it all about you and just try to like serve, do whatever you can to like push like your purpose. Notice I'm not saying your dream, your goal. I'm saying your purpose further. Like, secret of life.
And use your connections.
Yes.
Somebody you knows somebody that you want to get in touch with.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And don't be obnoxious about it, but like, you can like meet basically anybody by just reaching out to people and being like, hey, I have this thing that I really want to do, and I think this person would be like a huge help. Can you like introduce me or something?
Have you done that with your past many things? Yeah.
Yeah. I had like business meetings with the COO of Stryker, which is like a gigantic multi-billion-dollar like medical device company. And like, you know, I was like invited to Forbes 30 under 30 conference in Boston and like blah, blah, blah. Like, I did all these things just because I was like willing to ask the question.
Wait,
like, it's very cool.
Hold the phone. You did what with Forbes 30 under 30? You went to their conference?
To go to like the, yeah.
Don't make that not a big deal. No. Like,
no, it was fun. But like, it's just like people, everybody knows somebody, right? I didn't need to, but I wanted to go to that conference, and I had somebody who was speaking, or I knew somebody who was speaking there, and he was like, yeah, come as my guest. Let's go.
Jeez. Oh my gosh.
Super cool. You know, I learned a lot, met a lot of cool people that I'm like still in touch with that are like running really interesting, cool companies for the most part. Like, get plugged in, you know, your network is super valuable in this world.
Yes. Yes. And like literally, because I've talked to a few people and they're like, but I don't know how to network. I don't know. Again, back to the YouTube
Be
thing.
nice.
It's on YouTube, and be nice. Like,
hi, like,
well, don't be a dick. Like, again, don't come over and like don't do like a dick measuring contest, but like come on over and just like get to know people. Like, don't get to know people for your own benefit. Get to know people to get to know people. So
right,
important.
exactly. And I think that's like actually super key, especially if you're like raising money. Like so many people pitch investors at like the wrong times in the wrong places. Like you want to actually have an investor who is invested in your company in the way that like they want to help you succeed and not just like throw money at you, right?
Yeah.
You don't really want the investor who's just like, yep, here's $1 million, like whatever, go do your thing. Like you want somebody who's like, here's like 100 grand and I'm going to make all of these connections and help you like actually take off.
Yep.
Like, that's way more valuable than $1 million.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Oh my goodness. I want to bring it back to you obviously doing all the things, and I want listeners to get some you that's an understatement. But like what did you do when you had like, oh, I want to do this, 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 but you only have 24 hours in the day? What was your entrance into that, I guess is my question.
Yeah, I mean, I think for one, I didn't have very many full-time jobs. And the full-time jobs I had were like not very typical. So like in medicine and firefighting and like whatever, like full-time is 3 12-hour shifts. Or like 2 48-hour shifts or like something like that, right? So it's like you suddenly have 4 days free or 3 days free or 5 days free that are available for everything else that you want to do.
Yeah.
Which is probably how I did a lot of it. But I just like said yes to things and then I managed my schedule. I didn't give people expectations that weren't unrealistic or that were unrealistic. That one.
Yes.
Right? Like I made my time clear and then I jumped in. But people needed help. So I was like, look, like I can give you like, I don't know, 8 hours a week or 3 hours a week or 20 hours a week or whatever it was. And then I got that experience and I got to help and I got to contribute and I got to learn stuff. That's like mostly how I did it. But like some days were really long. Like when I was running company as I was working 100 hours a week, like pretty typically like 80 to 100. Like I just never saw my roommates. It was hilarious. I like moved into this new house and then just never saw them because I was never home.
Yeah.
But like I would do one job from like 5 a.m. to like 9 a.m. and then drive and teach. I taught at a community college. I forgot about that one.
I forgot about
I would
that
drive
one
and teach from like 11 to 4 or whatever. And then I would do something else from like 5 to 10. And then I would just repeat roughly.
Are you glad you did that? Like constant back to back to back stuff?
I mean, I wasn't doing anything that felt like I needed to do it, right? I wasn't doing anything for money. So it was all for like my enjoyment, really. And so it was fine because I liked what I was doing. You know, and there were some days where I was like, oh man, this is gonna be like an early day, or like I haven't slept much in a week, or like whatever it was, but it wasn't bad. And then when I was like running my own company, like for like the majority of my time, I made my own schedule, which was great. I did whatever I wanted.
Yep.
Like me and my co-founder would go to the gym at 6 a.m. and we would climb for like 3 hours before we started working. Just because we could. And we were just like, we were productive, but we didn't have any of that, like, we're going to be here 9 to 5, or like, we're going to get 16 hours of work done every day, or like whatever. Like we just had work that we needed to get done. And that just took however long it needed. Like we would stay up until 2 a.m. preparing for pitches. Like that would happen on occasion. And so like, I'm much more a proponent of just doing what needs to get done in whatever time frame that takes you.
That's fair. Would you say like, were there ever times where you were like, oh, I really want to do this and I really want to do this? Like where you were at like a major crossroads, but did you pick both? Did you pick one or the other? How did you go about that?
Yeah, I definitely had some of that. I think usually I picked both in the same sense of like just letting people know what I was capable of. Like, hey, this is my time. Like take it or leave it, basically. Like I want to do this and I want to contribute, but like I only have between 5 and 10. I don't know, like whatever it was. And most of the time they're like, yep, that works great. Which is great. And if you're trying to start something, you can do that at any time of the day. So
True.
like that works.
That's the other thing people forget. Like, in order to run your own business, you don't need to have like 8 hours a day, like you were saying. Like, I started my business working full-time, full overtime, I'm actually going to say, as a waitress. And I still, I stored away like little 15-minute, 1 hour chunks, an hour and a half. Oh, I have a day off. Great. I can work a few hours on this. And like, and it adds up. Like, those 15-minute chunks, they go a long way in the long run. So if you have like those, that like, oh God, I want to do both these things. Maybe it's like, I want to, stay at my current day job in order to make money to go after the thing I want to do. Like, you can do both. People forget that. Do I think that like there's a way of spreading yourself too thin? 100%. But it's like you were saying, that's when you are over committing. That's when you're saying, I'm going to do this. And it's way too high for the amount of time or value that you have to bring. Like,
yeah, you need to be realistic with yourself on like what you can do. And if you have kids, like that changes things a lot.
Oh God. Yeah.
But like, it's all about priorities, right? Like, yeah, you might need to tell your friends that like, I'm not going to go out this Friday because I'm working on a company. Like, that happened a lot, or it's like, no, I have this deadline or I have XYZ or like whatever. But if you want to start a company, like, it takes work. If you're only working 40 hours a week, this is going to sound bad. But if you're only working a full-time job, like, you have a lot of time that you can devote to making a company if that's what you want to spend your time doing.
I love that you put that at the end. Like, if that is what you want to spend your time doing. Like, I love that because goodness, this truck outside. Sorry for anyone listening if you hear beeping. But we literally, our days are made of the things we want them to, or we make high priorities of. Like, literally, I like to use this example. If you were going about your day, you were like, oh my God, my day is so busy today. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's like so packed. I'm so stressed. But your phone breaks. You're going to find the opportunity, that 2-minute window that you have to go to the Apple store or whatever store to go fix it, because it's a high priority. We make things that are like, anything that is not a high priority, you're not going to have high on your list. So like, for instance, I always make sure that my evenings are free. Like, that is my time to be with my partner. Like, that is a really high value of mine, like, to be able to have that time away with him. But like, during the day, I make really specific chunks of time for my business, for the podcast, so on and so forth, because those are really high priorities. Word vomit.
Yeah, and like, chunk your time like that and then commit to that time.
Bingo.
Like, that's what you need to do. And if you have a partner, you need to make them a priority.
Ding, 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 ding,
like,
ding.
That has to happen. One of my friends is in med school. He's a first year. And he's like, I know he's been like having some relationship problems a little bit. And he's like, do you think I can do research? And I'm like, I mean, you can have research and not have a girlfriend. You can have a girlfriend and not do research, but you probably can't pull off both. Like,
at the same high level. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And it's like
100%.
People don't want to acknowledge that. And I think to some degree, they don't really like being in charge of their time in that way. Right? They like being told what to do. They like being like, oh, I'm off at 5. I can do whatever I want. But it's like, if you want to start a company, like, you need to prioritize your time better.
Yep.
Because you can always make time for whatever you want, but it's all about what you want. If you want to start a company, do it. Get off your ass. Right? Like, unless you are truly working 2 full-time jobs and have kids and you're strapped, like, which people are, like, don't get me wrong.
Definitely.
You have time.
Yeah.
You just make excuses for your time. If you're watching any amount of TV, you have time to start a company.
I love it. Is immediately followed by, but that's my time to unwind. That's my time to feel like a human again.
Totally.
I want to say to people though, if you are working on something that you're passionate about, that you feel fully invested in, fully fulfilled by, that TV does not even cut it
No way. Compared
to your passion project, fulfillment project, whatever you want to call it. Like totally literally agree. Oh my God. People get so stressed out. I like to look at it this way. And there's a whole podcast episode on it. It's called the RPM podcast, or how to get your goals, something like that. It's a whole podcast on how to break down a goal, but little crash course. Like, the only thing you need to attack the goal is what the goal is. You need to know exactly what you want. You need to know why you want it. This is the step everyone skips over because they're like, oh God, yeah, I know why, it's fine. And then they quit on it a week later. You need to know exactly why you are the person who is put on this planet to do it. You know who it's going to benefit, who around you is going to be inspired, so on and so forth. And then have 3 things, just 3 things that you can do in one sitting, 3 action items that will get you closer to that goal that you can do in one sitting. That is all you need. There's your magic pill. Like, that's it.
Totally.
And then the more things that you do, things that you can do in one sitting, the clearer you're going to get on what the next thing is, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, so on and so forth.
Yeah. And like, these passion projects should be passion projects. Like,
yes.
They should like fire you up. Like, I remember, for instance, I was starting this for the first company, the law company, and we were working like super hard. And my business partner like looked up and he was like, oh man, Mad Max is playing today in like 20 minutes at the theater. You want to go? And I was like, it's like 6 p.m. He's like, yeah, let's go. So we like ran over to the theater, watched Mad Max. It was awesome. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but like fired us up. It's a ridiculous movie, but we were in a good mood. I don't know. It fired us up. We went back to the office and just cranked until like 3 or 4 in the morning, just because we were like on it. Like we were like, this is going to happen. Like blah, blah, blah. Like it should be that stoked, right? Like you need to be stoked about what you're doing. If you're not, like something's wrong.
Yep.
It doesn't mean your idea is bad, but maybe you need somebody to do it with, or like a different person to do it with, or a better person to do it with, or like, I don't know. I hate doing projects alone. So like I always have business partners because I just like people. And then you get to be excited together.
Yep. It's easy
way better.
It's nice to have someone to bounce ideas off of. That's why I'm in business currently by myself, other than my VA, but like I always have a business coach. Like I need someone to bounce stuff off of, like
totally
consistently. And that's when like the times in my business where I have not had a business coach is when I've plateaued the most, and when I felt the most, like you were just saying, not inspired, not excited, and like almost like, oh God, am I really the person to be doing this? When I have a business coach, when I have someone to bounce that shit off of, I am like, move bitches, get out of the way. I'm on my way to success.
100%.
Like my version, but like it literally just having it, it goes back to what we were saying at the very beginning of this conversation. Who you spend your time with freaking matters. And if you don't have that with you, like I even look at it like who I spend my time with might look like my podcasts, like the people I listen to on audiobooks. It might look like people I listen to on YouTube. Like, so it doesn't have to be a real granular person in front of you. It can be someone who is speaking at you, quote unquote, but like
totally
oh my goodness, 100%.
And I will say, like, if you have a business partner or not, like you should get a business coach.
Yes.
And a personal coach.
Yes.
If you
I always have two. I always have two every time. Yeah.
If you can afford that, like it will pay off.
Yep.
For sure.
Literally, I was at I was listening in on a business conference. I wasn't at it. It was virtual, but the speaker was saying the number one reason why businesses fail is the mindset of the CEO. And
for sure.
And it's like, literally, I heard that and I was like, that's why this shit's important. Like, because I've seen my clients, and like, when I say CEO, I don't mean like CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. I am a CEO because I am the person I'm the CEO and founder of my Life Coach Baker business. But like,
totally,
it doesn't have to be anything like super big, but your mindset is what trickles down the whole company. And company meaning people or projects or whatever, or launches, whatever that looks like. Your mindset is the like, oh God, what's the powerhouse of the cell? Doctor, tell me.
The mitochondria.
Thank you. Your mindset is the mitochondria of your business.
Yep. Nice.
Thanks. Set it in.
No worries. But yeah, like having a good business coach, having anybody really, if you have a mentor, that counts. Like somebody you can bounce ideas off of is super, super valuable.
100%. And for someone to be like, that's a great idea. How do we make that happen? That second question. Or
like just whittle down your idea. Like, oh, you have this idea? Like, how do we get that to like something you can do though?
Yep.
Like right now.
Yep.
Or like
oh my God, that's so true. It's so true. Oh,
it's definitely true.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I could talk to you for hours. I know it's now at an hour and a half, but for anyone who's listening, I don't want this to go on for too long. So thank you for anyone who's listened to the end. That's so great. Micheal, who are you? Where can they find you? Instagram, anywhere, med school, future?
Yeah, I nuked most of my like social media things for the most part, but you can find me on Instagram at Upside Down Adventures.
He posts
That's my personal like random upside down nonsense.
It's so fun.
It's
You'll
pretty
post
fun.
like photos of like you doing handstands in the most random ass places. Like I'm talking like on top of cliffs in like the like areas of Hawaii, and I'm just like, you terrify me, but it's very, very cool. So highly recommend.
Yeah, to be clear, I started that after I was doing handstands already. My friend was just like, we already take all these pictures. Like, why don't you start an Instagram? And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds good.
That's amazing.
So that's like the only thing I do. I'm trying to figure out Twitter again. I don't really like it, I don't think, but I'm on there at Micheal Head J, I think. Pretty sure that's me.
Love that.
But yeah, reach out. It's fun. I do some coaching if you think I could be helpful.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
me. I'm in med school most of the time. I'm just studying away.
God.
I'm still doing side projects, but
of course, because it's you. You have to do 10 million
things.
Yeah.
I need my business world to make me happy.
Oh my goodness. Well, okay.
I can't just be in the books all the time.
I want to leave on one question that I wanted to ask you. And I don't think I wrote this down, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Do it.
Why why med school? You've got such a mind for everything else. Like, why med school?
Yeah, I mean, that's like a super, super hard and good question, I think, for anybody. The true answer, and it's a terrible answer, is like it's a calling more than anything else. But I think really doing medicine, like I was a fire medic, I like worked in the ER, like that really gave me a lot of fulfillment that I didn't get elsewhere in my life. And so doing that and being able to see people at like their most vulnerable is super cool and like such a big privilege to have as like somebody in the medical field. And I just wanted more information to be able to treat people more thoroughly. Mostly like I was just like, what I know now like isn't enough. And so I decided to make the jump into med school. And most of my friends in business thought I was insane. They were like, you're going to spend how much money and like lose out on all this other money and stop doing business to like go to medical school for the next like 10 years. What are you thinking? And still I'm like, I don't know what I'm thinking. But for the most part, like it's really nice and fulfilling to be with patients and to know that you can help them and to give them comfort and to, bring them some completeness into whatever they're doing in their life. And so like, that's, I think, mostly the answer. I think it is a certainty that I will be in business at some level and be a doctor. Because like, honestly, I think medicine is too slow. Like I'm one of those people that thinks like it's much better to create something that you can help a bunch of people at once instead of just like one person at a time. And so that's what I'm going to keep doing. But it's also really valuable to me personally and for those people to like have one-on-one interactions and like take care of patients.
That's fair, man.
So I don't know what I'm going to end up doing, but I'm interested in like wearable tech. I'm interested in like changing the healthcare. I'm like doing a whole bunch of healthcare policy right now, like trying to change policy. So
I just want to say for anyone listening, you got Micheal Head before he gives his first TED Talk. Like this is like such a treat. Like I feel like you're one of those people who I'm like, you're going to give a TED Talk. You might win a Pulitzer Prize. You might win like, like all these, like you're just such a mind and such a like genius. Like I'm going to use that. Like,
thanks. I don't think so, but sure.
I do. Like after like seeing you for the last 26 years of my breathing life, like go from like, like you did this and then 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 this. And now you're doing all these things, but they're all things that you're so passionate about helping other people with is so inspiring. And I know people listening to this are just going to feel so inspired also by hearing that. And like,
that's my deal. Just do things that are passionate about. Do that.
Stamp. That's the title. Like I did.
You're going to die anyways. Have fun.
Thank you for coming to this motivational podcast.
Exactly. Yeah, right.
But I have two questions for you, two segments that we do with every guest. And that is, How did you get in your own way this week? And what is a small goal worth celebrating?
I mean, small goal as I finished an exam this morning and it went really well. So
I'll celebrate
check that one off the list. Moving on. How did I get in my way? I almost didn't work out yesterday,
Why?
but I did because I was lazy. I had like a super lazy day yesterday. I was pretty burned out from studying. It was a struggle to get through all the material that I wanted to get through before the exam today. That happens. We have like crazy amounts of things to learn, but
Oh my goodness. I can confirm that we were at my sister's wedding, and I almost said our sister's wedding because that's very accurate.
that's pretty close.
It's pretty close. And like you were studying these, God, I can't even, what pharmaceutical?
Flashcards?
Sure. Like it was like, I looked over and
farm.
I was just
We were
like,
doing farm.
it's farm. That's it. So pharmacy, same thing.
Pharmacology.
I'm great at this, but like,
Yeah, it's fine.
I was like looking over and you were like doing all this stuff. And it's like, most of these words I've never heard of, like all this stuff. And it's like, not that I think
Same.
that I would know all these doctor terms, but like it is so amazing what you guys have to do and what you guys learn in such a chunk down amount of time.
I agree. I'm still very impressed with like all the doctors and their current knowledge. I'm like, how do you still remember this? And I'm like, oh, I now see, because it's just a ridiculous amount of volume and you have to.
Oh my God. And yet you're still like, I'm going to start a business or do some business stuff.
I'm not going to start any business right now, but I will help people start businesses. That's easier on my end and more fun, honestly. So
that's fair. That's super fair. Michael, thank you so much for coming on today. I so appreciate it. This was so fun.
It's been a while.
Yes, please. Here. And